everyone, and welcome to the Burgess Podcast, the show where we are opening up conversations about life at sea, discussing hot topics within the industry, as well as offering mental health support and promoting well-being for crew. We also have our very own in-house recruitment team, so if you or anyone you know is currently looking for a new position, please send your updated CV to recruitment@burgessyachts.com or check out our recruitment posts on Instagram @Burgess Yacht Crew. My name is Lorena, and today we are starting our series on equality, diversity and inclusion. Now, this is a huge topic, and so our plan for this year is to break the subject down into bite-sized chunks as an introduction to the broader subject. So over the next year, we will be opening up discussions about what the terms mean, how language and communications affects our relations with others, the mental health benefits of practicing acceptance, and how by embracing our differences, we are ultimately creating environments where everyone is respected and fairly treated. So to help kick us off, we are really excited to be joined by Jenny Matthews, founder of She of the Sea, an organisation which has been leading the charge on the subject of diversity and inclusion. They have created the Diversity and Inclusion Pledge, which asks organisations within the yachting industry to pledge that they will build practices to promote equality and that they will monitor and report diversity in order that progress can be measured. Jenny, it's so lovely to have you here. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and it's just always such a pleasure to have these conversations. This is obviously my favourite topic, so thank you.
Yes. Well, I mean, we were talking earlier, and I've been doing so much reading on the subject, and it's endless, isn't it? There's so much to cover, which is why we've said about the importance of breaking it down to make it easier to digest for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest challenge is making this topic accessible. It doesn't have to be scary, and it's just about, building our knowledge and our understanding. So really excited to jump into the ABCs of DEI.
So diversity is becoming an increasingly talked about topic. Why is it important for people to understand the meaning?
I think that understanding what's being talked about is really critical in kind of making sense. There's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of, I would almost say, jargon. But essentially, when we're talking about, for example, diversity, the major topics people are talking about is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. But when we look at diversity is talking about the mix of individuals. So it's about identities, talents, and experiences. We hear a lot of talk, especially these days, about topics such as gender and race. And while these are really big ones, really important, they're only a really small part of the diversity puzzle. We're talking about topics such as age, orientation, background, socioeconomical background. It's not just things that we can see and that are part of our physical bodies. It's also stuff that we can't see. So education, political beliefs, religion. It's also about neurodiversity. So it's diversity of thought, background and perspectives as much as it is about physical makeup of people.
Yeah.
That's a bite-sized part of it.
Yeah. No, so it's about what makes us who we are, isn't it? And I guess the whole topic of diversity and talking about it is learning to respect, learn from each other and respect each other's differences.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what are the benefits for a yacht in embracing a diverse work environment?
Yeah, great question. And I think it's always really important to understand why these topics are important before we can get into creating action with them. And the amazing thing about this topic is that where originally these topics people were getting involved in, the benefits were because of personal lived experiences or those of those around them. So it's more kind of ethical and value-based benefits. We're also seeing a huge amount of data that's really showing that this is as much about performance as it is about ethics and values. Now, what I mean when I talk about this is, I think one analogy I really like to use is you would never try and fix an engine with just a 10 mil spanner. You need a whole toolbox to get the job done. And essentially, when we look at people, when we look at teams, our teams is our toolbox. And we see that when we've got a really diverse group of people in terms of physical makeup, as well as their backgrounds and their skills and experiences, and those people are working in an environment where they feel included and valued and accepted and safe, that's when we really start to see magic happen. So the data showing us that we see an increase in performance across the board, but specifically in areas like problem solving or innovation. We see a huge increased uptick in engagement, and that translates into loyalty, longevity. We see more collaboration, and we see a really increased sense of well-being. And these are all talking about, obviously, this has benefits in mental health as much as it does in actual people's experiences. So we see drops in things like turnover, and reducing turnover means reducing costs as well. So I think Key Crew did some great research this year, and they conservatively found that replacing a single crew member can cost a boat between 15 and 40,000 euros, depending on the experience and the role that that person has within the boat. So not only are we reducing cost, but we're also reducing like the leak of knowledge when we have turnover as well. So all of these things come back to benefiting the boat, right? We also see a knock-on effect when we see diverse leadership. The data shows us that when we've got diverse leadership at top and middle levels, we see a dramatic reduction in harassment, bullying, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. So this is all knock-on effects of creating these environments where diversity and inclusion can flourish. And I mean, when we especially look at our industry and our biggest challenges, this really could not be more relevant to us right now.
Yeah. And I really loved the toolbox analogy. It's so true. You know, you need a variety of people on board, you know, mix of personalities and skills and abilities for the day to function well. So we mentioned the diversity pledge earlier, which I'm really happy to say Burgiss has signed. How is the data looking? Have you seen any progress since you started?
Great question. And so a bit of background is we did the initial data collection last year in March. And that was basically the first ever statistical analysis. And I think it's worth mentioning just in context about the data, we were only able to collect the data from the companies that are working with us. And one of the first big things that we found was that only actually 37% of the companies were able to share data with us in the first place. And so that was kind of like the first big alarm bell, is that it's not actually industry practice to collect data.
Yeah.
And we've got things like GDPR considerations here. You know, we're asking people to disclose things about themselves. And as an industry, we're just not doing that at the moment. So that was the first kind of big hurdle that we as an industry have got to work on. But when we look at the data itself, again, there was real challenges in that we were only able to collect data for 2 genders and nothing else. We've got no idea where we are in terms of, you know, more than the 2 genders, no idea about race, really, ethnicity, orientation, all this. So the data set we have is really limited. But what we found within that, again, no surprises. All you've got to do is look around the fleet. We looked at over 30,000 crew, and we found that, for example, in the captain's roles, only 2% were women. Chief stews, we found that there was 10% male representation, which is actually higher than I thought, but, you know, still a long way to go there. But what we found really shocking was actually, and maybe it's just because I'm in the deck of chief officer role, as opposed to in the galley, but the galley's got some big issues going on. At entry level, it was 42% women, but then when we got to head chef level, that dropped down to 15%. So we've got some really big issues when it comes to minorities or really progressing into leadership roles. But I think what we found was really shocking is actually, of the whole pool of crew, all departments, and this was people looking for work as well as crew employed, only 28% of crew are women. So it's not even balanced like as a whole pool. So we've got a lot of work to do, and we actually are focusing on collecting more data, more comprehensive data before we can actually start to accurately say we're getting better or we're getting worse. So we're right back at like basic levels at the moment. So I don't have any good news or bad news to share, but we are working on collecting more better data.
And are you finding are more and more companies signing up to share the data with you, or is there an interest from the industry?
There absolutely is an interest, and I think what we're really focusing on at the moment with the people that we're working with is building the infrastructures that are needed to collect the data. This doesn't happen overnight, and we're dealing with really sensitive things here. So there's a lot of GDPR considerations. It's also how the data is collected and when the data is collected, and it's about protecting everybody involved. So it's really something that doesn't happen overnight. But, once we start getting these building blocks in place, we'll really be able to start, catalyzing meaningful change. And again, I feel like I could talk about this so much. Biggest challenge with anything this big is the defining stage. There's a fantastic Einstein quote that captures this, is that if he had an hour to solve a problem, he'd spend 55 minutes defining the problem, and then he'd only need 5 minutes. So we can run in here and be like, oh, this is terrible, it's a mess, let's just throw everything at it. But unless we understand what's actually happening, what our challenges are, what our opportunities are, we could throw anything at it. We won't know if it works. So we're really focusing on that defining stage. Who are we as an industry? What are our challenges? And once we know that, we can start making the plan forward.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the early stages, you can already see, I guess, you can start to see where the challenges are showing. And you said earlier about at the moment it's just gender. Will this be broadened to cover?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's the kind of thing that the challenges are probably universal. If the specifics might be slightly different, but the mechanics might be slightly different. But we need to understand who we are as an industry in all of our complexities to actually create solutions that work for the biggest amount of people as possible.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, hats off to you guys, because it's something that's been needed for a long time, and it's great to see that. It's actually, we're now in the stage now where we are looking, monitoring, seeing where we are, and hopefully, progress.
Yeah, it's exciting.
You've also recently launched the Legacy Mentorship Program, which is really exciting. Will that program help to promote diversity, do you think?
Absolutely. And when we look at global best practices, mentorship programs, or as they're sometimes referred to as sponsorship programs, are a really critical initiative to be implemented in any strategy. And the reason that just a bit of context as well for legacy mentoring, it's open to all genders, all backgrounds, all departments ashore and at sea. So it is an open place for people to come and connect with people that are invested in industry talent. And the reason why this is so powerful is within our industry, it's a lot of luck of the draw. It's what boat you're lucky or unlucky enough to get onto that can really shape your career trajectory, and it can have really positive benefits but also could be really damaging. So we wanted to create a place where people could come and connect with those that can support them. And why this is so powerful is that we see the biggest challenge for marginalized communities to getting the opportunities, getting the progression, getting the support from those that are above them is bias. And what we see here, a lot of opportunities come from familiarity. It's who's in power already and who is familiar to that person that's in power. We all like familiarity. We all like things that we understand. And we're naturally, this is not always necessarily a conscious bias. We like what we know.
Yeah.
We like people that have shared experiences. We like people that have similar backgrounds. We like people that we can connect with that make us feel like, we're part of a community. And that can be really challenging for people that fall outside of the dominant demographic.
Yeah.
So mentorship is a great way of saying getting people right in front of the people that can support them in their careers and creating those connections. We see access to opportunities, upskilling, and it's just like lighting a fire under talent. It's awesome.
Oh, amazing. And I guess it helps give them the life skills to deal with challenges thrown at them in terms of diversity.
Yeah, and I think so this is our second round, and the first round of our program was a 6-month pilot, and the feedback that we got from our mentees, some of them were minorities, some of them weren't, but across the board, one of the biggest feedback, the biggest impact that this program had was having somebody that was unbiased and 100% in your court behind you that you could share with, and that they might not necessarily needed to experience what you're experiencing, but knowing that you've got someone to talk to that supports you and can offer you advice or even just an ear seemed to be one of the biggest positive impacts.
Yeah, I feel like we should all have a mentor in our life.
Do you know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you. I found mentors in that program that have totally changed my life. So it's a little bit selfish in some way. But, like everyone can benefit from this.
Yeah. We all have people in our lives who inspire us. And I guess this is helping those people meet each other quicker. Amazing. Really, really exciting. Well, we mentioned earlier that this is going to be a very short, snappy introduction to diversity. So thanks, Jenny. It's been a really good chat, great introduction to a very important topic. And I look forward to digging deeper later in the year.
Amazing. Me too. Thank you for the opportunity. It's always a pleasure.